She drove home from a party with her boyfriend and his best friend. Two of them never made it, and when investigators pulled the data from the car's black box, what they found wasn't an accident. There was no braking, no swerving, no panic, just a straight line, accelerating all the way to 100 miles per hour, directly into a brick wall. Mackenzie Shirilla was 17 years old. She survived, and she claimed she remembered nothing. But the judge who sentenced her had 5 words for what happened that night: controlled, methodical, deliberate, intentional, and purposeful. This is the case that shocked Ohio, and now the entire world, as Netflix just released a full documentary about it. Let's go through everything. Mackenzie Shirilla grew up in Strongsville, Ohio, a quiet middle-class suburb south of Cleveland. By all outward appearances, she had a picture-perfect life. She lived with her parents, Natalie and Steve, and her older sister, Danielle. She was popular at Strongsville High School, reportedly followed around by over 100 girls. She had a TikTok account where she reviewed clothing and lifestyle products, companies sending her free samples. She was, in her own mind and in the minds of many around her, an influencer in the making. She was also, by accounts from multiple people close to the situation, someone who modeled herself after Regina George from Mean Girls, the cruel, controlling queen bee who ruled through fear and manipulation. That comparison would take on a much darker meaning later. In high school, Mackenzie met Dominic Russo. He was a couple of years older than her, and they quickly became inseparable. Or at least that's how it looked from the outside. They dated for 4 years. By 2021, they had moved in together. Dominic's mother, Christine, called her part of the family. Mackenzie's father, Steve, said they were planning a future together, that there was even talk of marriage. But behind closed doors, the relationship was anything but stable. According to multiple witnesses and family members, Mackenzie and Dominic had a volatile, toxic dynamic, and Mackenzie was often the aggressor. Dominic's mother, Christine, testified that the couple had a pattern of breaking up and getting back together. Fights were frequent and intense, and in the months leading up to July 2022, the tension escalated significantly. One incident stands out above all others, and it happened just weeks before the crash. Dominic called his mother in distress. She sent a family friend, Chris Martin, to go pick him up. When Martin arrived, he witnessed Mackenzie and Dominic in a physical struggle inside the car. He saw Mackenzie swinging her hands at Dominic, and then he heard her say it, clearly and directly, "I'm going to wreck this car right now." That was July 2022. Less than a month later, she did exactly that. There was also surveillance footage from that same month showing Mackenzie at Dominic's house, threatening to break in. The relationship was unraveling. Dominic had reportedly been threatening to end things permanently. And for Mackenzie, that seemed to be a line she was not willing to let him cross. On July 30th, Mackenzie, Dominic, and their mutual friend Davion Flanagan spent the evening together. Davion was 19 years old, a former school athlete who had been adopted at age 8 by his guardian Jamie Flanagan after his biological family struggled with drug addiction. He was by all accounts a good kid, someone who happened to be in the wrong car at the wrong time. The three of them attended a graduation party at a friend's house that evening. Friends described the mood as relaxed, deep conversations, YouTube videos, the kind of ordinary summer night that teenagers have everywhere. Nobody who was there that night saw anything alarming. Nobody thought this would be the last time they saw Dominic and Davion alive. Sometime in the early morning hours of July 31st, the three of them got into Mackenzie's 2018 Toyota Camry to drive home. What happened next was captured on surveillance camera. The footage shows Mackenzie's black car driving down a Cuyahoga County street. The car is accelerating. Not gradually, it goes from normal speed to 100 miles per hour with no hesitation. At the end of the street, there is a commercial building with a brick wall. The car does not slow down. It does not turn. It drives straight into the wall at full speed. The impact was catastrophic. Strongsville police officer Michael Galassi arrived at the scene at 6:20 in the morning. He later described the car as looking like it had been cut in half. Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan were both declared dead at the scene. Dominic had severe head trauma in the passenger seat. Davion, who had been in the back seat, was found on top of Dominic, equally devastated by the impact. Mackenzie was found unconscious, with her foot still on the gas pedal. She survived with 3 broken ribs, a broken femur, and a lacerated liver, requiring multiple surgeries. Police initially treated it as a tragic accident. A young woman loses control of her car. A terrible, senseless loss. That narrative didn't last long. When investigators analyzed the car's black box, the electronic data recorder that logs speed, acceleration, and braking, what they found changed everything. There was no braking, not even a reduction in speed. The car accelerated all the way to the moment of impact, 100 miles per hour. No attempt to stop. Then came the second discovery. In the days before the crash, Mackenzie had visited the exact same location. She had been to that building before. She knew what was at the end of that street, combined with the witness account of her saying, "I'm going to wreck this car right now," just weeks earlier, combined with the pattern of volatile behavior and Dominic's reported plans to leave her. Investigators began building a very different picture of what happened on July 31st. On November 4th, 2022, after her discharge from the hospital, Mackenzie Shirilla was arrested. She was charged with 17 crimes, including 2 counts of aggravated murder and 1 count of drug trafficking. Body cam footage of the arrest, released in 2025, shows an officer handcuffing her as she cried. During the transport to jail, she was seen closing her eyes, seemingly trying to calm herself, a detail that would later stand out to those following the case. She pleaded not guilty. She claimed she had no memory of the crash at all. Mackenzie's attorney, James McDonald, made a strategic decision. Instead of a jury trial, they would go with a bench trial, meaning a single judge would decide her fate. The defense's argument centered on a medical condition. Mackenzie, they claimed, had POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, a blood circulation disorder that can cause dizziness and fainting. Her mother, Natalie, testified that Mackenzie had fainted before. The theory was that she had blacked out at the wheel, that the crash was a medical emergency, not a murder. It was a plausible-sounding defense, and it might have landed differently in front of a jury. But prosecutors dismantled it systematically. If Mackenzie had fainted, why did the car accelerate? Why was there no attempt to brake at any point? Why had she visited that exact location just days before? And why had she, just weeks earlier, told a witness she was going to wreck her car with Dominic in it? The prosecution's argument was straightforward. Mackenzie wanted Dominic dead because he was going to leave her. She chose a location she had scouted in advance. She drove there at maximum speed. And Davion Flanagan, who had nothing to do with their relationship, died simply because he was in the back seat. On August 14, 2023, Judge Nancy Margaret Russo, no relation to Dominic, delivered her verdict. Guilty on 12 felony charges, including murder, felonious assault, aggravated vehicular homicide, drug possession, and criminal tools possession. And then the judge spoke. She described Mackenzie's actions with 5 words: controlled, methodical, deliberate, intentional, and purposeful. She said the crash was not reckless driving. It was murder. She called Mackenzie literal hell on wheels. She chose a course of death and destruction that day, the judge said. Mackenzie was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. Dominic Russo's mother, Christine, addressed Mackenzie directly at sentencing. Her words were quiet, measured, and devastating. Dom and Davion were robbed of their futures, their hopes, and their dreams. Mackenzie showed no mercy on Dominic, nor did she on Davion. Only God at this time can have mercy on her soul. Davion Flanagan's family created the Davion Flanagan Memorial Scholarship in his honor, dedicated to supporting aspiring barbers, reflecting his own dreams and interests. Mackenzie's legal team attempted to appeal the conviction. The 8th District Court of Appeals upheld it. As of today, Mackenzie Shirilla is incarcerated at the Ohio Reformatory for Women. Her parole hearing is scheduled for 2038. She has maintained her innocence throughout. And now, just this week, on May 15, 2026, Netflix released a full documentary about the case, simply called The Crash. It features interviews with people close to the case, explores the volatile relationship dynamics, and revisits the question that has followed this case from the beginning. Where does a fatal mistake end and cold-blooded murder begin? Here's the thing that makes this case so difficult to look away from. Mackenzie Shirilla was 17 years old. She was a teenager, and whether you believe she was a calculating murderer or a girl in a toxic relationship who lost control in the worst possible way, one fact remains unchanged. 2 young men are dead, and she is the reason. The black box doesn't lie. There was no braking, there was no swerving, and she had been to that location before. But the defense raises a question that courts have struggled with for years. Can a medical episode explain behavior that looks, on every metric, intentional? Can a teenager in emotional freefall over a breakup be capable of premeditated murder? The judge said yes, unequivocally. What's harder to reconcile is the image of the girl her friends described. Popular, fun, social media savvy, with the person the prosecution painted. Someone who decided at 17 that if she couldn't have Dominic, nobody could. The threat she made weeks before the crash. "I'm going to wreck this car right now," wasn't taken seriously when it was made. It's the kind of thing people say in arguments. Except in this case, it turned out to be exactly what happened. That's the detail that stays with you. She said it, and then she did it. If you've been following the crash on Netflix, or if this case is new to you, I want to know what you think. Do you believe the verdict was right? Was this premeditated murder, or is there any part of the defense's argument that holds up for you? Let me know in the comments. If you're new here, I cover cases like this every week. Cases where the obvious answer isn't always the complete one, and where the details matter. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and hit the notification bell if you want to be the first to see it. I'll see you in the next video.